will need to follow my voice as it leads you into a relaxed state of meditation.
Welcome back to the Hobby Grow podcast. I'm your host, Ben Owens, hobby grower and ghostwriter for the cannabis industry. Each week, we'll dive into my network of growers, hash makers, breeders, and mentors around the world to give you insight into their journeys, as well as give you information you can use to grow better weed and make better hash at home. Hit subscribe, roll something up, and let's get into it. This episode, we are joined by hashish specialist, home grower, and public speaker, the Dank Duchess. Duchess has long been a force in the global cannabis movement, carrying on the reins of legends like Frenchy Cannoli with her hash education and advocacy, as well as her work forming the International Women's Cannabis Conference. I asked Duchess to join me today to talk about her journey as a hobby grower, her path from Florida business owner to global hash educator, what judging hash competitions around the world is like, growing one plant, one cycle from seed, as well as her advice to other growers and makers out there. Let's dive in. Hello, hello.
Hello, good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well on yourself.
I can't complain. Getting to talk about weed and hash on a afternoon. It's not a bad day.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
How has it been getting readjusted, flying back? I know you were in Thailand for quite a bit. Has it been an adjustment period, or are you settling back into routine?
Oh, I wish I could say I was settling back into routine. I think I woke up um like 5 times in the last hour, just making sure that my jet lag doesn't throw me completely off. I swear my phone is not working. But so I'm jet lagged like it's kind of crazy. And then also it's an attitude adjustment. Anyway, Thailand is so different than here. Thailand is so different than here.
So yeah,
I'm a,
so
yeah.
tell me a little bit about that. Like, were you just there for fun? Were you visiting home grows? Were you just relaxing and getting off of the grid, or what prompted that travel?
Well, I went to Thailand last year to judge a Seven Cup session in Phuket in June, and although I could tell Thailand was beautiful, I spent most of my time inside the club, doing my job, and then suddenly I was back in New York. But I had really the truth of the matter is between TikTok and Instagram and the algorithm saying, "Hey, you'd love Thailand," plus cannabis. At the end of the day, I care a lot about cannabis. I wanted to explore the hash culture specifically on Koh Samui, which is an island in Thailand. Plus, I had a couple of stops to make in other parts of Thailand, and then I was judging the Seven Cup session again at the end of I guess what you'd call cup season in Thailand, which is in January. So it's the last cup, like 4 cups in 1 month.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
that it was really just like let's take advantage of that and be there as long as possible to really soak in the culture and get a real vibe, get a routine. Pretty much, I was going to join the gym, which I did, which was amazing, and I'm really glad that I went, and I'm looking forward to going back.
And so you were there what, like a month, like the full month of January?
54 days.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I got there in December, celebrated my birthday, which was New Year's there, and then I just came back on Saturday.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine the reintegration being quite a trip. Did you have a grow going while you were gone? Did someone care for your grow,
No,
or
I
had you
had to shut down
paused?
my girl. Oh, you are just hitting me in my heart right now as I like try to stuff this bowl for a second. I thought I had made provisions. I'm jet lagged, and came back here determined not to ever be a cussy again. I want to be nicer, but I'm 47 now. I don't have much niceness. I don't want to be a cussy. I want to grow my own weed. And I got back here, and it just hit me the force of like, see, this is what happens when you shut down your lights. And I gave my lights to somebody who's doing a cultivation, and now I have not enough weed. At least I have hash, but I have not enough weed. So no, I had nothing. I had nothing going. Usually, if I can go up until maybe I've pushed it to 11 days without being in my grow, and if I have everything set up right, it'll be fine. But 54 was just too extreme.
Oh yeah, no, I feel like you need a plant sitter at the very least.
Yeah.
So are you going to start it back up then?
Actually, a lot of that will be answered in this next week. It's kind of weird, Ben. Like you reached out about this podcast while I was gone, and I had some slightly different ideas of what would happen when I came back. So I hope it's all good, dude. But I hope this podcast is interesting. So
So yeah, maybe
I'm
maybe back up a little bit or a lot, and you know, and then we'll work towards what you're working on now. But like,
sure.
what was your introduction to this path, whether that was consumption or cultivation or hash or you know wherever you want to start, and kind of
Okay.
bring us forward from through those pivotal moments that brought you to who you are and where you are now.
Sure. It all started going on 23 years ago. I suppose I could say it started way longer than that because, Nancy Reagan told me say no to drugs, and I definitely believed Nancy Reagan. And the DARE program was really influential in my life. I was very much anti-alcohol, anti any kind of drugs, all the way through college, So, a lot of my peers are like, I was smoking at 17. I sure wasn't. To this day, I've never even been tipsy, right? So
Oh wow.
I none of that was a good idea for me. The truth of the matter is that while I was growing up, until a certain point, I I felt I was quite unattractive. And I was a cutie pie too. And I was also obnoxious as oh, I didn't ask you about cursing. I'm
Oh no,
sorry.
you can get yeah,
Good,
be
because I
as
am
normal
my
as
mouth is
possible.
like whatever. So I was obnoxious as fuck. I gotta tell you, it wasn't like I was an obnoxious kid. I was obnoxious as fuck. I mean, come to find out, that's just some not very well understood neurodivergence. But I am still a well actually kind of person. So the only thing I had really going for me, I felt, was my talent. As a musician and my brain. So I can't do anything that's gonna like be deadly to my brain. It's gonna affect me poorly. And I really believed that like, this is your brain, this is your brain on drugs. And then I met this guy when I was 21, interestingly in bartending school. So okay, so a lot of things happened. So I was a web designer from when I was in college, right? I went to Howard University for mathematics, and it was at the beginning of the like everything electronic. The internet was great. I mean, for those of us who knew what was going on, but everything was really like everything's gonna be solved by the internet. And I had to become a web designer, let's say early '97. When the whole web crash that happened, I was so devastated. I went from seeing a very amazing landscape ahead of me in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area to like, what am I gonna do now? Like, I own like 50 domains. No one wants any web designers right now. It's .com crash and whatever. And I happened to go to bartending school because at least it's a skill that I could take all around the world. And I'm having a moment right now, just to be very honest. I'm having a little bit of a download, probably all the mushrooms I've taken, because I decided back in 2000, man, that I wanted to take a skill around the world. That's kind of interesting. So I went to bartending school so that I could take the skill around the world, even though I was a web designer, but no one was hiring web designers, right? And then I meet this guy the very last day, and he is engaging. He's just so charming and whatever. I have a little crush on dude. Come to find out, he smokes weed all the time, and I just cannot get that. I just cannot get with that. But I am charmed enough to tell him that like we're having a great life right here in DC, but I hate the cold, so we got to move to Miami. I mean, that's a short version, but we got to move. And so we move, and I'm having a great time with this guy, but he's so smart and he smokes so much weed. And I'm really disappointed, and I'm feeling like maybe I'm going to cut off the relationship. And then one day, a piece of glass on a table across the room in the kitchen just just spoke out to me. The art and the craftsmanship of that glass was like ingest me, for lack of a better phrase. And all that denial and all that went out the window because I said, this is the moment that I'm going to try the cannabis. And I said something. Oh, I mean, I called it weed at the time. And I said something, and swear my husband, like, flew from the other room and lit that bowl. And I inhaled, and I got to tell you, it just completely changed my life. For one, I obviously didn't lose my brain. In fact, I did some differential equations right there in the kitchen to make sure I was still smart. I was like, if I could do calculus after smoking weed, these fuckers lied. And I swear that that started a whole journey for me because besides coming down, and that first time you come down, I was a little bit scared because I felt like, wow, I can't hardly remember what I was doing. I thought that I really did mess up. But after that, I smoked cannabis every single day. And I was in Florida. And in Florida in the 2000s and still now, smoking is not cool. Yes, although they have a medical marijuana program, if you don't have a license and if you don't have a license and you have a particular skin color, oh, not a license, if you don't have a prescription and you have a particular skin color, best believe you are going to lock up, right? And so here we are in Miami, and I'm smoking every single day, and my next door neighbor is a cop, and this dude is a super officer friendly, which comes into play later, but like I am willing to take the risk because now instead of very black and white thinking, oh, ding, 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 instead of very black and white thinking, I can see so many shades of gray, and I know my life is different. Within 3 months, I can say I have smoked us practically out of house and home. So we need to start growing weed. We have to start growing weed because I'm not gonna stop smoking weed, but I can't afford to smoke weed at the level I'm doing. So that first, I would have to say 4 5 months was pretty rough, in terms of setting up and still having to be a custody or trying to not exactly even wean myself because that wasn't it, but I had to ration in a way. But we started growing weed, and for the next 3 years, I grew really, really, really bad weed. I mean, really bad weed. It was so bad, partially because, okay, because I was involved with computers and, um, you know what I'm saying? I was one of those old school people. I wasn't even paranoid. I understood IP addresses, and I understood that, like, I didn't want to be on overgrow.com. I didn't want to be on looking at high times online. I mean, this is 2004, 2005. I knew that I still could be traced in that way, and it was Florida. I mean, I wasn't aware of how stupid Florida was, but I just knew. So they weren't doing any of that crap, but
Giving the government
I
lots
just
of credit
knew.
there.
You know what I'm saying? And so my husband and I, we used to go to the hydro store, and we were those people that parked 6 blocks away and walked there and talked about our tomatoes and that kind of thing. So 3 straight years of just terrible weed, but I was growing enough of it that I could really, really smoke that swag and have as much fun as possible. And then I started reading magazines, and the magazines explained a lot. Started reading some books, you know, one time bought some seeds on the internet and they never got to us. And that was just like, I was paranoid for a long time. But I spent 10 years in Florida growing weed and I got better and better at it. But the problem was scale. I went from closet to a bedroom and it was still in Florida. And the officer that lived next to me during Wilma wanted to come over and drink beer, and I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to like smoke in peace and grow my weed. Don't look at that light. Don't look at that light. Moved to Miami Beach some years later, and the cops were down the block. I lived like down the block from the cop station. And the problem with that is that it made me very paranoid and it made me have a life that was very skewed. I still am a member of a of a black sorority, which extends way into like until you die. And my friends were Congress people, and but they saw me as Sheila. That's my real name. Do not call me Sheila. But this is Sugar Sheila, and I had a very polished, forward-facing life. And then I would go back to Miami Beach, and no one could visit me. I thought they probably thought I was a weirdo with that, but no one could visit me because the quickest way of getting caught is having people at your house. And after 10 years of that, I just felt like this is the year I'm going to get caught. And so I had to move. And I had some options because in 2012, Colorado went legal and Washington went legal. So by 2013, the High Times Cannabis Cup came to Denver, and we went out there, and I went from never having experienced more than 10 people smoking in one place to 80,000 people. And I was floored. It's like I couldn't compute so many people cared so much about weed. And then a couple months later, I went to Seattle, and it was 50,000 people. And it was there that I got into carts, or really, my husband got into CO2 carts. And we really liked this one company, Wham Oil, and we started calling them and telling them like we would come out there and work for free, and if you would please just give us a chance. And they were not giving us a chance. They weren't giving a chance. We came to find out they thought we were feds
I was
for
just gonna
sure.
say, like, yeah, they're like, who wants to move across the country and work for free?
Totally. I
This,
mean, and look, I live in South Beach. At this point, I'm living in South Beach. I lived a very, very nice life. We had a massage company. I mean, at one point, we had Beyonce as a client.
oh wow,
My therapist went around the world with Lil Wayne just to provide him massage, whenever he felt like it. It was a great life, except for the fact that there just wasn't enough weed or weed culture or anything like that. There was coke culture,
yeah.
lots of coke, and there was a lot of stigma for the fact, like the few people who did know that I consumed cannabis, it was like, ooh, I don't do that. I'm like, girl, you got powder in your nose right now. Shut up. you know so so this company, we're like pestering them, and at the same time I start thinking a little strategically. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna move out to the West Coast and we grow weed, but like, how can we prove it? And so I decided, let's go to Oaksterdam. So we go to Oaksterdam in the, Oaksterdam is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we go to Oaksterdam in December of 2013. And of course we end up being valedictorians because we know how to grow weed. But while we're there in the Bay Area, we called Wham Oil one more time, and we're like, look, we're at Oaksterdam, please let us come. We're doing it for free. I mean, I could afford it. Take 2 weeks, let's go do it. And they let us go up there. And I have to tell you again, life changed, because whereas I had had ounces in my hand, and now that I had been to the cannabis cups, I had seen, shoot, I saw a pound of weed, and I was like, wow, that's like the most weed I can imagine. Here I am in this little closet of a room, and now I'm processing about 11 pounds of weed a day to make CO2. And that's literally the first concentrate that I made. So
Wow.
although I'm known for making bubble and making my temple balls and such, first thing I made was CO2. And I was intrigued. I went back to Florida. I was like, I can't live in Florida. I need to get in this cannabis game. I need to do something. And within 6 months, moved to Oakland. We just like moved. We moved because I figured that I was going to go crazy with Seattle's cold weather. And in Oakland, there was this thing called Measure Z, which allowed you to grow 20 plants per person indoors and 72 plants per person outdoors. So this is different than the mythical 99. This is not the 99, which I knew from back then was that's a good way to get caught. But in Oakland, within the city of Oakland, you could grow a lot of weed. And you can be in an urban environment. I wasn't ready to go into the sticks as yet. And I can grow a lot of weed. And that's why I moved to Oakland in the first place. And that was great. It was great because I was going to grow as much weed as I could possibly do on the roof of my building. And that's what I went on to do.
That's
I
awesome.
totally skipped how I met Frenchy, which is like happened right before this, but
That's
maybe
so
you ask the
dope.
question and I'll bring it back. Sorry.
Yeah,
Some of
no.
that little weed that I have is kicking in.
That's no, it's an incredible story. I was curious, so in Florida, I know that clones were like you had to sort of become part of a group of growers that were pretty trusted to have regular access to clones. Were you growing from seed or
Oh
did you
no, I'm a grow weed from seed gal.
Okay.
I very rarely deal with clones.
So
I'm not trusting
so
enough.
where were you getting your seed, just from bag seed at the time?
A bit of it was bag seed, and I think my husband did, he's a guy. He was a guy and a white guy, so he was moving a little bit differently, and I think he was able to secure. I remember, I think I still have original God Bud. I
Oh wow.
have BC Bud, something from BC. I think it was BC Bud and one other thing. And just worked from that. Like I said, I was making really, really bad weed.
Yeah.
So after the first couple of rounds, I had my own seeds, you know.
You're like, look at this perpetual hobby. I get more seed every time I grow. The gift that
Yeah,
keeps on
so
giving. So Oaksterdam, I know, on the flip side of that though, had a large library of genetics. Was that something that when you moved to Oakland you tapped into, or just the network of people you met, or not at all? It was just a launching point to get you there.
well, you know, it's so funny. When I moved to Oakland, my husband and I, we only knew one person, and that was the director at the time before Dale, a guy named Assam. We only knew him. That was the only person we know. And I guess at this point, I guess I knew Frenchy. So let me just tell you how I
Yeah,
met
yeah.
Frenchy. Let me tell you how Frenchy. So in 2014, I make the decision, and I had to say I because I had to coerce my husband, like, need to do this. But I make the decision that it's we gotta go out west. And so if we're going out west, we went to go and find an apartment and get our medical card, and also there was going to be a another High Times Cup, and that was the 2014 High Times Cup that was called San Francisco, was actually held in Santa Rosa. So we fly out to California, and I'm really efficient. So we get this great apartment in Oakland with this great roof, like I said, that I like took advantage of. We get our licenses, we get our medical card. Now we're going over to this event. We get out to Santa Rosa, and it's 2014, so I've gotten into dabbing a couple years now. So I am dabbing like crazy, just from all colors, golden to poop soup. I'm dabbing all over the place. And I see this booth, and it's like packed. And so I know if a whole bunch of people there, that means there must be some good dabs over there. And I muscle my way to the front, and I met with a very just sexy booth. It's leather, everything looks nice, except there's no BHO. There's nothing, no dabs, no crumble, there's no wax. Instead, there's these hunks of chocolate. So I'm a little bit confused because I am at a weed thing and there's food obviously in front of me. And I turn around bitching about the fact that I don't even like chocolate. And this man goes, "This is not chocolate, this is hashish." And I said, "Oh, wait. But can you dab it?" And he goes, "But of course." So then I get my first dab of hashish, and it is real nice. Take a picture with the little funny man, and husband takes a picture, and that's good, Go back to Miami, pack ourselves stuff up, and then we move back to move to California. Now I'm trying to find a job. Like I didn't just name drop for no reason. I had one of the best massage companies in South Beach. Didn't we didn't invent the spa party, but we were really good at the idea of spa parties. I did Volkswagen's 10-year anniversary on top of the Gansevoort. So
Wow.
my resume was reading like, I like the yacht show. And I'm trying to be a bud tender. I'm like, can I get this $11 hour job? I swear I'm not gonna go anywhere. I just need to get in to kind of see what this cannabis thing is like. And nobody was giving me the time of day. And I was just like, and I'm
Like
burning through
Fed,
my
it's got to be a
savings.
Fed.
Yes, sir. Like that was gonna be any kind of like time of day, right? And I'm burning through my savings because we're like trying all kinds of random businesses, and also I can buy whatever weed I want. So I'm just like flying through it, and I go to another one of these conferences, and I'm stressing that because to this day, conference life has been one of the best places for an explosion of education and connection um, for me. Everything really has been almost every conference I've been to has tweaked my life in some kind of way. So I go to another conference, this one being HempCon, and I see this guy wearing a shirt that I remembered the other French guy was wearing. And I was just like, "Where's that guy?" And he's just like, "Oh, he's back there." So he's older, and everyone who's been interviewing me or I feel like is part of the cannabis industry seems to be 19. And I'm just like, "This guy's older. Maybe I can vibe with him." And I ask him out for coffee, and I know that his name is Frenchy. Now I know his name is Frenchy. I don't know anything about him, but I asked him out for coffee. And a couple of days later, we go out for coffee, and we figure out we were both web designers in a different life. Then I had gone on to do a different design. I had gone to grad school for landscape architecture. He had moved to Japan to design women's purses, and we had a really good rapport. Came to my apartment, and all my stuff was still packed to the gills with boxes and whatever, and we had to smoke in the like tiniest spot, and he really vibed with me, and he invited me to come up the 101. That's a major road highway in California. Really, the 101 is the transport road of all of cannabis from down south all the way up north. And I was gonna go to this kind of private event. I get there super late because it's going up the 101. There's no reception. I'm kind of frustrated, and I get out, and he's like, "Hey, Duchess, you making an entrance?" And I'm like, "Okay." How about then he asked me if I would write for Weed World magazine about hash.
Oh
Out of
wow.
nowhere, this guy that I've met like couple times says, "Would you write to for Weed World?" And why that's important for me is that when I was in Florida, not being on the internet, learning from Icy Grow or Overgrow or any of that, I was reading High Times, I was reading Heads, I was reading Weed World, Skunk. This is where I was getting my information, and now I'm getting the opportunity to write for them. Oh yes, I definitely am going to jump at this opportunity. But then I came to find out that like I needed to learn how to make hash in order for, as Frenchie said, to be able to write about hash because that's what he wanted. He wanted me to help define a new language about hashish rather than this vague way of speaking, "Oh, it tastes like hashish." That doesn't really mean anything. So I have this opportunity, and he says I have to learn how to make hash, and I still don't really know who he is. Okay, he's a French guy who I guess makes hash. And I go to his house and I learn how to make hash. And that's September 10th of 2014. And from the first time I press hash a week later, I know that this is going to be in my life for the rest of my life. For sure, for sure, for sure. In some way or shape or form, this is going to be my life path. And it was pretty amazing. I didn't again still didn't know who Frenchie was until I went to an event and people, "Oh, Frenchie, this, can you look at my hash?" I'm just like, this dude must be important. I mean, I'm usually better at this, but I then decided to search him up. And I was just like, let me find out. And that's how I became his first student and set me on the path of being the Dank Duchess.
Very cool. And by pressing, you don't mean like pressing in a rosin press. You mean like
No,
with
we
a
weren't making rosin at the time. I pressed hash to Frenchy Tech, which is making temple balls.
okay.
I went on to make rosin also because it was 2015 to like 2018. It's when I mostly made rosin because I had product on the shelves and you have to diversify. And now I'm gonna have product on the shelves again in New York this year. And
Congrats.
you don't not sense the like in my voice because I am a hash maker that prefers bubble, but I understand people really like rosin, but it's not my thing. If I had to choose, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have powerful hash.
Okay. Well, so you were making hash, traditional hash,
Hmm.
with Frenchie,
Oh, not
and
actually with Frenchie. Frenchie taught me, right? So
okay,
Frenchie taught me to make hash just so that he can speak to me about it. Like I can understand from someone who has had experience. He figured I would make hash like at home and dabble or whatever. But he didn't realize that like I mean I had become obsessed. So it wasn't until I missed a dinner date with him and my husband when I had to make 3/4 of a pound of hash, that's 337 grams, for a dispensary that he realized, Duchess is doing production. And by then I had already established my own name as the Dank Duchess, you know. Um, I'm making hash, I'm selling it to dispensaries. So Frenchie and I never made hash together as like a unit. I
Okay.
mean, I went to his house and made hash all the time, because he was my teacher, but not as a unit. And I wasn't his apprentice because, as he said, at this time, I'm 35, going on 36. I wasn't, I was already selling under a brand, which was my name. So I was just his first student.
So where did the
Proud to be his first student, but I was just his first student. And so I'm selling I'm making hash and I'm selling it. My husband is doing like the sales for me, and I'm writing about hash and I'm meeting hash makers at every conference and learning as much as possible because the stories that the opportunity he gave to me made me the hash maker I am now. I always say that Frenchie is 80% of my hash making knowledge, and everyone else is at least 20%. Because what I used to do is, and I say used to because I did it for about 5 years and then I totally burnt out, and that was terrible. But I would get hash from hash makers and learn their story, learn their ethos, their philosophy, and such like that, and then go on an adventure. So, whereas even back then, very few people were reviewing hash, but the few people that were talking about hash were doing reviews. And I would write these long stories up to like 3,000 words of adventures that I would have with the hash and the the ideas that would come to me, and it was really beautiful. I hear, I hear it was beautiful. This idea of having people experience what hash was like to me, and because of that, that allowed me to be like the third or fourth person to write about Skittles. So back when Brandon, Shiloh, and Greenfields were still friends, still family. You know what I mean? I have
Yeah.
the pictures from back then. And I wrote about a lot of people, and I got to meet hash makers from around the world. And I got into the international scene by the next year. By 2015, I had gone to Spain to go to a wedding, my cousin's wedding, and then I went to a conference. And the conference wasn't actually even in like Barcelona or Madrid or anything. It was in the Basque country, and after 6 hours of driving, 'cause I was coming from Behar, after 6 hours of driving, getting lost, coming in on the rain, and it's only 3 hours left, I walk in the door, and immediately this guy says to me that he knows me. And I was just like, I'm like at the top of Spain. How is that even possible? And he says, "You're Duchess." And I said, "Oh, you might know me." And he says, "I'm Blue Ice." And to this day, this is one of the most important relationships that I have with this hash maker, Blue Ice from Barcelona. Actually, we were just in Thailand together. Um, and that really gave me an anchor. That meeting gave me an anchor for all the international things that I do today.
Oh wow.
Again, meeting at a conference. I'm telling you, go to those conferences, people. You should ask me a question about homegrown conferences. I know I didn't write that in the email about like people in homegrown getting into competitions and such like that, but I do think people should.
Yeah, no, I mean the it's interesting. The one criticism that I hear most often about some of the makers that do the circuit is how do you make hash when you're never home? And so there's that balance of like travel and wanting to travel. As someone who, like, when I went to Barcelona and I went to Amsterdam, it was amazing, but it was, like you said, about 11 days, 10 days, and my plant sitter's tired of coming over and my plants need me. So
Yeah.
how at the time, like, were you growing yourself, or were you relying on other friends grows when you were making
Oh
hash and
no,
processing?
I've always been growing. So I would travel. So okay, in 2014, I get to California. 2015, I have so I'm growing indoors. And sometimes I would travel and my husband would travel, but at this time I'm growing indoors, so I'm not traveling yet until 2015. Um, I had done a small outdoor in 2015, before my neighbor tried to set my building on fire, and that was quite a hoopla. So I only had a
Intentionally?
little bit of weed. Yes, he tried. He was not quite right in the head.
Oh well.
Feel bad for you, Quinn. But he yeah definitely set my building on fire. My plants on the roof. After he tried to steal my plants like a couple days before, and so I have shut down. I have grown enough weed that I have weed, and because I'm making hash at this time, I do have flour, lots of flour that I've sourced that Nicholas, my husband, has sourced. So we have flour in storage. I'm doing fine. You know, I do my first bit of travel, but I'm not going for very long. That was like 12 days, and I wasn't actually growing at that particular, like in that particular month. And I didn't need to start growing indoors again for a couple years because then the next year in 2016, I grew 59 plants on the roof. I mean, I had so much flower. You know, when you live in California and you're living in the Bay and North, you understand the idea of one plant, one season. Shout out to the Mendo Doughboys, you know. So you grow one time, you grow really big, and then you just kind of coast the rest of the year.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit because that's definitely the antithesis of most people I talk to, and some make their way to seed, but to the one plant, one time, one season, especially in a market like California that has such great and diverse access to nurseries and consistent supplies of cuttings compared to some of these
Mhm.
other markets. Like, how did you end up on that sort of train of thought and path as a grower?
Oh, Frenchie, for sure. Frenchie's like, okay, so he knows I've been growing cannabis in Florida, indoor, right? And Frenchie is adamant that I need to go on top of the mountain. If you want to understand about flower, about cannabis, you need to go to see the farmer on the top of the mountain. This is what he just pushed this idea of getting to the source. So up until then, I grow synthetic up until then. I mean,
Okay.
I grow just I like took from Florida so many crystals and so much blue water. It was crazy. You know, I think in my apartment in Oakland, because I still have my apartment in Oakland, I think in the back of a closet there's still some crystals just crystallizing or something. So Frenchie tells me the resin is better when it's organic. Okay, well, I've smoked organic flower and I have to admit this is better. And I do what he says. And he says, go to the mountain. So I go up the 101 and establish relationships up the mountain. And I realized this idea of using the sun, which is going to be better than dealing with these lights, and my electric bill is going to be so much less if I use the sun. So I had seen the some of the potential of the roof, but that's why I maximized. I went from like 5 plants in 2015, and they were kind of meager, to 59 plants, and they were gigantic. And that's how I got into the magazines because it was something that nobody had done before, especially in an urban environment. And so out in the open. I lived on the third floor, and this was a farm, or this was a grouping of plants that was right above. And if you had the right angle, you could see that there was someone growing an entire building of weed, and that was me.
Just a little urban Eddie Lepp pushing boundaries in the center of town.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like after being so quieted, so quiet in Florida and feeling so alone, it's really what helped develop my online persona of being the Dank Duchess, because it wasn't just ever about work. As soon as I got over to California and I could speak, now I'm talking about cannabis immediately. I wasn't even growing anything at the time, but I'm talking about it. I'm fussing about the propaganda in the news. So as soon as Frenchie started teaching me about hash, and this is before Frenchie got into social media, because he didn't get into social media until February of 2015. So this is in 2014, and I'm just like, this guy Frenchie told me, and several people like, do you mean Frenchy Cannoli, the real Frenchy Cannoli? I'm just like, yeah. Oh, really? Prove it. And finally, like, Frenchie, get on the internet. Get on the internet, Frenchie. Get on the internet, So I wanted to be as loud and as proud as possible. And I think that's a real key feature of what has made my career different than other people is that, like, as soon as I learn something, I'm talking about it. And as soon as I find some new information that meant that what I taught you before was wrong, I'm getting on the internet and I'm telling you about it also. Because I feel like ignorance is like the worst prison. Um, I push this idea of grow weed from seed. That's what I believe. But I've grown clones. But grow your own cannabis because that is the only way you protect your agency. Yes, it's nice that we can go to dispensaries and be custies from here to California, with here being New York. But the idea of putting your blood, sweat, and tears into your own grow, where you connect with the bacteria in the soil so that the plant grows the way it's best for you, now that's next level wellness.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always said like I come from a background of being a Boy Scout and like hiking and camping and doing a lot of time in nature,
Mhm.
and having a grow tent is like my own little portal to nature. Wherever, no matter what I'm doing, I can go sit in the forest, so to speak, get
Yes.
time with the plants.
Yes.
It's a
And we're
different
so
it's a
lucky
different
that we
high.
can.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that, I've now through this podcast and through just this career, like speaking to people like yourself who have done this in various conditions and of various secrecy, and our ability to talk about it and have a community around it openly is definitely something not to be taken for granted.
Hey, I mean, in in California, one of the things that I like the most when I first got there is like whether you are pro cannabis or anti cannabis, everyone knows at least one person that's involved in cannabis in some kind of way. And I found myself getting into random conversations with people in the line at the grocery store. I mean, I still know this Chef Frank, who we started talking about growing at the DMV and like developed this relationship, just a random conversation about growing, which turned into a community. And I like that. I like now in 2026, it's like now that you have the ability to do so, please, please. I feel like I'm practically begging. If you live in a state where you can grow or you and your friends can put some money together, just flow into that self-sufficiency model. Do that because then you can assure yourself what you're putting in your body is healthy. Like don't don't allow the commercial interests to make you believe that everything that is available to you is best for you. Just because it can be sold and it's within regulations doesn't mean it's best for you. And a lot of times, if you want to maintain consistency on your own wellness journey, the only way is to grow your own or have someone who's growing for you.
You talk about a rabbit hole that growing weed has thrown me down is how I mean, poison's such a terrible word, but how poisonous everything is.
Yeah.
When you start growing your own weed, you start to realize what other people do to weed, and that
Yep.
makes you wonder what are they doing to all these other things that I'm buying in various formats, and what's being sprayed or put into X, Y, and Z.
Yes. I mean, this is it's not even tangential. It works hand in hand. Once you take care about what you're ingesting in a form such like combustion going straight to your brain, you can't help but notice like I would love to eat better because the same thought process that has people using PGRs um and really feeding their plants all kind of just trash to get to the bottom line of bigger weed that looks better but is not better for you. You crack it open, look under the microscope, and all you see is all these trichome stalks and no heads or immature heads because it really just makes things look pretty. Then you realize, yeah, they put something in those apples to make it look pretty. It's the same kind of race to the bottom line. And the only way you can make sure, grow some apples, grow some weed.
Yeah, those 6 blocks of tomato growing conversations start to have real value when you
For
start to think
sure.
about shit. Maybe I'll grow my own tomatoes and just
Hmm.
completely leave that on the side.
Hmm.
It has home growing or has growing as a whole led you to grow other plants or other crops or motivated you to try your hand at those kinds of outside of cannabis horticulture?
Oh, sure. I was already growing a lot of other things. I've grown food since I was in Florida. When I my first apartment was on this lake, and we had a huge backyard, and I grew. I mean, I got really heavy into peppers, and actually, my first the first bit of growing weed happened actually outdoors. And rather than indoors, because we had some bag seed, I was growing a lot of different things and a lot of bougainvilleas, and they're colorful, but they don't look anything like weed, right? But and in the middle, I was growing one plant, and oh, I know he's a he at this point. He got so gorgeous, and I remember I was smoking some weed outside, and my neighbor, who I didn't know, was walking his dog. And he goes, "Beautiful plant," and the way he said it let me know, I'm not being as inconspicuous as I thought. Never mind the fact that this plant is like towering over everything else, and its banana balls are everywhere, just dropping pollen like. And that's when I decided to grow indoors because I didn't. After all, it's Florida. I didn't want to get caught. But yeah, I grow a lot of things here. The last when I left for Thailand, I actually had to say goodbye to my basil plants. Those are the last things that were growing in there that weren't weed. But I used to grow orchids.
Okay.
Um, at one point, I had up to 82 orchids. Miami was a wonderful place to grow orchids.
Yeah, I can imagine that the climate was great for that. So talk about
Oh.
that a little bit. I mean, you talk about a plant that can't really be grown from seed, right? Like
hmm
everything is from culture.
hmm
How did you picked up TC along the way? Then it sounds.
If I picked up, no, I didn't pick up tissue culture. No, I actually used to go to fancy shows and take small orchids and nurse them over years.
Oh,
Uh,
okay,
Oh, I just
collector.
now I'm having a sad moment thinking about all those orchids that I had to give away. No, actually, tissue culture wasn't something. That's something I'm interested in now. I have a couple of friends who are one who has a tissue culture lab, and what with the haploid virus, latent virus, tissue culture has come into really necessity. You just,
Yeah.
maybe your audience knows or not, but this is a virus that one of the ways that you address it is through just continuously cloning or taking tissue cultures of younger and younger plants until you kind of eradicate it that way,
Yeah, you outrun it, I guess, is the
Yeah, yeah,
theory.
pretty much you outrun it. And I'm interested in that. I believe I've escaped dudding to this point, but you never know.
Well,
You
and
never
growing from seed, right? Like, so
know.
this becomes the one of the eternal debates is how much does it spread from seed? I've seen anywhere from 0 to 7% to 40% plus, depending on which study you read. And at the same time, a seedling has a lot more vigor
Hmm
and has a lot more of that natural propensity to fight off threats.
hmm
So even if it is infected with something that's latent, and if you're only growing one plant one cycle, is it even going to be a thing? Or if we move away from cloning and that sort of propagation, like how much of a risk is hop latent?
Oh, well, I mean, you're gonna have the risk of having crappy weed. So there's that, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Well,
we
and
we don't, if we're only one child is viral, that poor child's still sick,
this, and it's interesting. I don't know if you know this, but I had to kill my whole stable of 22 cuts that I was
Oh,
maintaining because I got 3 HLV positives and sort of knew, they're all swimming in the same pool. Like
yeah.
it's there. And so as a result, like I am now much more diligent about it. But at the time, right before I learned all this, I had been attempting to go from a salt grower to an organic grower and had been told, there's a learning curve. It's not going to be apples to apples here, but had consistently seen certain cuts performing lower. Just now what I look in retrospect, they had HLV.
hmm
But have you seen that? When you switch from synthetics to organics, like did you see a learning curve in that, especially as an indoor grower, or do you change it up depending on if you're indoors or outdoor?
Well, I have to say, so I went from being an indoor grower in Florida to almost immediately becoming an outdoor grower in California. And I had great seed stock, Frenchy got some great things in hand to me, and I also pulled from when I went out from in 2015 to Spain. I brought back a lot of Spanish genetics.
Okay.
Um,
Very
at the
cool.
time, so I was just working with different things outdoors. I feel like when you're working with the natural environment, there's certain parts of the learning curve that are eased.
Yeah.
I have since gone back to being an indoor grower, and I find indoor growing ridiculously much harder.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that harder doesn't mean better, but
Yeah.
it's just much harder. And I'm a person that moves more intuitively, and so growing outdoors was better for me. I can say I had a huge learning curve with one thing, which was powdery mildew.
Yeah.
Oakland is covered in powdery mildew. Like from afar, everything is beautiful. You get close, the roses are like polka dots.
Oh wow.
Um, so although I was on the third floor, I still got powdery mildew. And I remember I got it in Sunset Sherbet, and I mean I learned a lot that year because I had 9 Sunset Sherbet plants, which is obviously not a monoculture in a sea of 59 plants. However, they I must have just set it up in such a way that year that like they were able to near touch each other, and they just passed that bad boy along. Just like pass it on like a gift. I was just
Yeah.
like, so terrible. That was a big smack in my face. I will say that.
And
That
so, like, when something like that happens, I mean, now, 10 years later, 13 years later, whatever, we know a considerable more about how to handle some of these things. But back then, like, what was the approach? If I mean, you got PM, so do you hash it? Do you turn
what?
it into shatter? Like,
Oh,
what
no,
were
no,
you?
no, 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 no. Let us disabuse you of this idea that if something has PM, you can watch that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Do not do that.
No, I mean,
Do
I would not
not
advise. It's actually,
do not.
so here's one of my conspiracy theories that I'm sure people don't want told. Um, I think that a lot of people who were growers who were growing dirty weed were making BHO and getting away with it. And as the market has trended towards solventless and hash and rosin and some of these methods that don't involve hydrocarbons, that natural remediation that was occurring due to the process is not happening. And now we're getting a whole bunch of moldy, powdery mildew weed that's been turned into powdery mildew rosin.
Uh, See, you see what happens when you allow other people to make your stuff. You see what happens now. If you were growing your own stuff and then you got yourself a little rosin press, you see what happens. Oh gosh, look, do not. First
Don't
of
wash
all,
dirty
again,
plants.
when we're dealing with human nature, right? Again, human nature. You're dealing with people who it's not everybody, but there's a good sector of people who just you can't eat from everybody. You cannot smoke from everybody, right? And some of those actors have found their way into legal markets, or even if it's still legacy, they have big names and such like that. And it's not till someone does some kind of independent testing or whatever that there's a scandal, and then you find out like, oh, I've been like sucking on this terrible distillate. I mean, why were you sucking on distillate in the first place? But yeah, a lot of people think that like if it's that same question. Oh, the flour's not great. Well, we'll just make hash from it. I mean, no. And as I remember, I think on the show Weeds, as I remember, when Nancy Botwin was making hash the first time, I think she put crap ass flour in a bag and threw it in a dryer.
Yeah, she's buying
So
trim.
as I remember, something like that. And, no, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Trash is not going to make great hash. That was an idea, just like you said. When you're blasting with BHO can be very forgiving. It's blasting everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's literally and we were smoking poop soup. It was practically black tar at one point until okay, now you're making nug run, and supposedly it's going to be from the best of the best, but like we didn't know any difference. It's not until someone starts hacking up a lung, or it seems like it's popcorn lung, then you're like, oh, maybe this person's not making clean enough stuff. But the truth of the matter is you just don't know. It comes down to, especially on the legacy side, um who you trust.
Yeah.
And when you're in the medical market, like I personally, when I was selling my hash up until just the end of 2017, BPG, Berkeley Patient Group, used to carry my hash, and everyone knew you couldn't. This is just pass fail situation. There was no acceptable amount of powdery mildew or acceptable amount of any kind of pathogens that BPG specifically was going to accept. So if you're going to make some product for them, you have to come correct. And I think that personal integrity and history of doing it right is all a customer can, can bank on.
Yeah.
Or doing themselves, you can always do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think back to all of the, you know, legacy market weed and hash and hash is such a not even an accurate term for some of the stuff we were smoking in Missouri that came in a slick ball and was dabbed on butter knives kind of thing. But the amount of things that we've seen, and now having as a grower, realizing what you don't have to put into the plant, why certain things, why when we made BHO out of dried buds that we got in Columbia, Missouri, that why it came out black and brown because it was sprayed
Mhm.
with quite a few things, and it was dry, and some of these older techniques for just different markets. And so now as a grower, it's unfortunate, but I feel that most growers go through this where once they start growing, they realize that most of the product on the market is not something they want to consume.
100%. And maintain that snobbery, darling.
Yeah.
Protect your lungs, protect your nose. Yes, once you start growing and you see what it could be like, then you can see how fairly inferior a lot of product is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and on the extract front, I feel a lot of people get discouraged, and maybe you can speak to this more, but especially with an outdoor grow, is, if you're a heavy rosin consumer, you're not going to immediately supply your needs with a 4x4 tent. Like I don't think that you're probably going to get 4 months or 5 months of rosin at a gram a day of rosin off of your first grow.
No.
And so, like, from an extract standpoint, how did you approach the home grow side to satisfy your passion and processes, but also, do you have any thoughts on, like, if you are an extract consumer, like, and you're considering growing at home, like what considerations might be important?
Well, it's all about timeline with me in my particular story. So I by the time I was making hash, I was like making hash like that. I'm making hash from other people's grow. And then when I brought down my 2016 grow and then my 2017 grow, which was only 40 plants, but it was a much bigger grow still. That's the one that nearly got me evicted, so that I couldn't grow anymore. Um, I just had just pounds and pounds and pounds of weed. It's
Yeah.
growing outdoors, 59 plants, and I was averaging on the plants. Even, I mean, I had plants that had 2 pounds on it, so I had a lot of weed.
Yeah.
So my perspective is a little bit off on that. But I will say this: if you're going to be a home grower and you really want to make sure that you're able to have your own hash, some of your grow is going to have to be not just for your flavor, not just for effects, but some of it, the consideration is going to have to be on yield. So that means bringing in a Gorilla GG4, bringing in Blue Dream or something that's going to drop heavy. I'm going to be very honest, right?
Yeah.
If you only have 4x4, you don't have a lot
It's a
of
painful
space.
hunt.
Yeah, so it really comes down to find something that is going to be very resinous that wants to um, drop those heads. So I would look at forums and see what people are talking about. That's going to be a nice yield, and then grow some of those plants. And not only just grow some of those plants, but grow some of those plants from those growers for whom they can bring out those yields.
Yeah.
Everyone can't give you, for example, Skittles, very finicky plant. right? Don't start with Skittles. Let's go with something easier.
Well, and also considering
Papaya.
your climate, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
you
Well, I
can't.
mean, if you're indoor, I mean, you indoor growers, I say you indoor growers, like I don't have a tent in the next room, but you're able, your job is to try to replicate, the ideal environment for your plants. So that's going to be having the right dialed in humidity and the temperatures. And, if you live in Colorado, I wouldn't try to grow something, no matter how well you can dial in your stuff. I'm not going to grow something that would be better grown in Colombia. Like that's know your limitations of environment.
Yeah, it's it's a real thing. I was in Hawaii. I have a mentor that lives out there who's growing, and I sent him some cuts, and he was having some troubles with PM and botrytis, like everyone on the island. And
Hmm.
the advice that I kept hearing from everyone is like those are genetics that were proven to work in a dry, arid mountain climate, not on an
Hmm.
island in the middle of constant 80% plus humidity. Like, find
Hmm.
some regionally appropriate genetics.
Yeah. That's literally true. Sometimes we really stymie our growth by being insistent on growing things that shouldn't be grown. I mean,
I saw this
I
thing on
just
the
came back
internet and
from
I have to
Thailand.
grow it.
Huh?
I saw this thing on the internet and I just have to grow it.
Oh, no, no, no. See, like, I mean, I just came back from Thailand. I really like mangosteens. I'm not growing mangosteens in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So that's a
How was the home grow scene in Thailand?
I actually didn't see very much of the homegrown seed. Homegrow is so there are people do have farms, like companies do have farms, but there's a lot of gray area stuff. And I did want to go to the Isan area of Thailand where I was invited to go see this woman, Prempavi. She runs the first Thailand Ganja Cup. And that's where I would have had the opportunity to meet a lot of farmers and such like that. But that's why I'm trying to go back in 3 months. There's only, even though I was there for such a long time, there's only so much that can be done in a country that's so large. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very big.
So maybe talk a little bit about what you're up to these days as far as like you're traveling internationally for cannabis and made that jump from maker and operator to now educator and consultant. And what how are you carving sort of your path in this global landscape?
Oh, well, okay, so I've been doing consulting since 18. Pretty much what happened is when after California gave us that year that we could get our affairs in order before pretty much MSOs were going to step in. I knew that I did not have the funds or the wherewithal to go further with my hash brand, and I became a consultant like by January of 2018. I was like, okay, taking these skills on the road. And that's what I've done for years. You know, um, consult with companies, small farms, large facilities, or go to a different country to teach or something like that. Education has always been the backbone. Like I said, everything that Frenchy taught me, I was immediately putting content online. I have a robust social media presence. I'm going to go back to some level of education online. I used to do a lot of videos on YouTube. I have over a million streams of education. So that's been my thing. And that's just on between two videos on YouTube. Um, so that's been my avenue for a while. I like to travel, and so that's why I'm thinking back in 2000 when I was like, I'm going to be a bartender and I'm going to take my skills around the world. So now I'm a hash maker. I'm taking my skills around the world just so I can experience new cultures and also so I can get my hands on new types of resin. Um, and that has been really really important to me. A couple years back I made the conscious effort to really focus on marginalized communities and women. I started this conference called the International Women's Cannabis Conference, which is the only consistently paid conference where all the speakers are paid for their time, totally not pay for play. We're happy to have them, and it really focuses on getting women's voices, women in the cannabis industry to get their voices out there, whether they're older known speakers or new speakers and such like that. So in the same way with regard to hash, came out here or went out to Thailand, the big idea was to get to know the landscape a little bit, get to know the social landscape, and to highlight Thai hash makers. And it just so happened that the time that I went out there, I'd be in Chiang Mai, and then people were in Bangkok. I was in Koh Samui, and then people were in some in Phuket, so it was a little bit weird this time around, but I'm gonna go back in a couple months, and that's what I'm really looking to document um, hash culture and indigenous culture and the intersections of that around the world. So that's like my main thing. So the stories that I used to write for Weed World and then Skunk Magazine, I am now transforming that on a website called resinandrosin.com, which I really, really had all intentions to at least have started while I was in Thailand. But have you seen the beaches in Thailand? So now that I'm back, it's like there's so much content. But I really feel like we could use a repository of a place that we can discuss hash with authority. And I'm looking to bring on people like Nicotee to give guest lectures and such like that, Jendo, to really people who have been at the forefront of hash and rosin for all these years to continue to educate because we cannot travel everywhere, but our information and our voice can. So
Absolutely.
I guess I could say to summarize that, I'm going to go back to getting on my computer and yes, continuing to travel, but using the arm of technology to get even more people on this education tip.
No, I love that as well. And I mean, like, in this post-COVID world, we've all really learned how interconnected globally we are, thanks to a
Hmm.
lot of these platforms.
Indeed.
I've had the privilege of talking to people in Germany and Australia and Colombia and all sorts of places because of this plant. So
Hmm.
it is truly incredible. On that note, what's maybe the most surprising country that you've made hash in?
Um, well, see, this is not a country. It is
Okay, or I
a
guess place.
territory. No, I'm gonna say it's a territory, and it would be Guam.
Okay, that's
I mean,
cool.
Guam's far. Getting to Guam has been a mission. Guam's far and Guam's beautiful. And Nick T and I went out in 22 and 24 to do some hash making out there and to see the beauty of the place and also what being in an isolated environment is like. And that island can make some great hash,
And
like great hash.
are they just using traditional like air drying methods, or are they importing like plates and bruteless and all the fancy names and things that we've?
Oh yeah, they definitely some from before 20. They are so committed to advancing their cannabis and education. They solicit everyone. Like the cup in 24 was sponsored by the Bank of Guam. I
Wow.
mean, they're like not playing. They're
Yeah.
like, we're going to put our name on the map. So shout out to Guam for sure.
Shout out to Guam.
The most interesting, so that has been an interesting place. The most uh, make accommodations place I have made hash was Mexico. I was teaching a class in 19, and we were in San Miguel de Allende, and we're in Mexico City. And we just didn't have all the right exact things, but we made great hash anyway. See, I came with my own bags. Once you have the good bags, you can make hash that can be 6 star and it be air dried. Look at people like Van Egyptian or Jendo. These are amazing hash makers that predominantly air dry their material and it's terps on terps on terps, beautiful isolated heads. Um, it's just about technique. So I say that to say that although I've been using the freeze dryer since 2015, thank you, Frenchy, for that opportunity. Um, I love some good air dry. A slightly different experience. The look is different, and the resin presses differently.
Okay, yeah, no, I love where this is going because I was listening to a conversation on another podcast about like freeze dried fresh press and freeze dried cold cure versus air dried fresh press and air dried cold cure. And the robustness of an air dried profile, even in fresh press, as compared to freeze dried material, would you say that you notice, how would you qualify the difference that you notice between those materials?
I'm gonna be very honest. I don't know the last time I had air dried
Oh, okay.
uh, rosin. When I'm judging these cups, everything is fresh frozen.
Yeah.
Not making that better, not making that better, but everything is fresh frozen. So I'd have to really think super hard to think of when's the last time I had air dried rosin.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, and on that note, I saw that you aren't really smoking as much. So as you travel the world, on this pursuit of the hash journey and story and education, how has your change in consumption played, a role in that?
oh, well, that's a bit of sensationalism. I am definitely not smoking as much, but that's also saying like I'm going from 5 grams of flour and 2 grams of hash to 1.5 grams of hash and like 4 grams of flour.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah. I
so,
saw your
so
post and, I
yes, yes.
figured,
So, no, I am consuming less, but not just as I had said. When I was in Thailand, my endocannabinoid system was being just strummed to perfection by a lot of things: fresh food, a lot of exercise, a lot of sunshine. I'm back in New York, so that no longer applies. I need to keep my
it's
head above this
cold, no
water. It is freezing
sunshine,
outside. You know
a
what
lot
I'm
of brick,
saying?
stone.
But generally when I travel, I wouldn't say that there's some market less use. In fact, because I'm trying to really ingest all of a community or of a place, I am trying to smoke everything I can get my hands on, but still conscientiously. I mean, I've gone through periods, and I think it's always important to mention that overconsumption can happen. For sure. When in 2018, my marriage was falling apart. I was consuming 21 grams of flour and hash a day. I had
Yeah.
it. You know what I'm saying? I had a lot of flour. So that really actually broke down to about 15 grams of flour and 6 grams of hash a day. That's a lot of consumption. I was using it just like alcohol, and it was a mushroom trip that like snapped me out of that about how I was abusing cannabis. So it wasn't even about an addiction. It was just about being as numb as possible. But I do smoke less in general when I'm traveling, not for lack of access, but really the novelty of travel does spark a lot of good dopamine. And because I always acknowledge that as a neurodivergent patient of cannabis. I've been a patient for a long time. I know how cannabis affects my mood. I don't smoke. Frenchy always used to say that like one of the things he didn't love about rosin is yes, there are many different flavors and you can just go like a buffet, but he's smoking for effect. And there is a very different effect when you're smoking trichomes in their entirety and you're smoking the oil of the trichomes. When you have the secondary metabolites of cannabinoid and terpene production in those cuticles as opposed to not having them, right? So I smoke chillum, I smoke hash in chillum, and once I have brought my body to where I need it to be able to think clearly, to be able to not be as reactive, to be able to come out of my shell to myself, then I have developed the discipline to monitor myself and dose appropriately because this is medicine. But as for overconsumption, I mean, I'll be in Copenhagen, which was this party island, and have a little bit too much fun, but that's not going to be an everyday thing. After all, I'm 47 and I got purpose in this life, so there's that.
No more slab dabs off red honey nails.
Oh my gosh, those were the days.
Those were the days.
I mean, I'm not, and I don't do that now, but I did do that. You know
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm saying? I did do that. I definitely did do that.
Oh, those good times. Well, wrapping us up a little bit, I want to get us into some rapid fires. And
Sure.
so, just quick recap, kind of comparing your first grow setup to, I guess, your most recent grow setup before you shut down. What did that first grow setup look like?
The first grow setup, or I can go as back as early as I can remember. I had a lot of cats. We had Tidy Cats makes the yellow container, and I had this, the kind of deep water slash ebb flow system thing going on, and lots of nutrients in that water, as opposed to now I don't have a living soil set up, really honestly, because I'm scared of bugs. But I might change my mind now that I've been to Thailand and I have fought the giant cockroaches of the sky. Um, I had my plants in 25-gallon pots, my own soil that I make, my own amendment. Not my, I don't make the amendments, but my own kind of concoction. And under LED lights, I used to grow under HPS. Um, so
Okay.
that's a big difference in just that way. And all organic inputs. Once you're
Okay.
using LEDs or lights, you're not organic exactly because, that's not that sustainable.
Yeah, it's the burden of consumption of power and some of these resource intensive aspects of indoor growing is
Hmm.
not lost. Um, but nowadays I guess we can blame it on AI, and the growers get off a little easier.
Well, I mean, I'll be really honest. I always say if you eat hamburgers, don't talk to me about me dealing with my AI. Go talk to those cows.
Yeah. The amount, yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack between, you're using an iPhone to complain about some of these things and the ludicrous nature of that. Um, okay, so are you a wet or a dry trimmer?
Dry trimmer.
Okay. Do you defan or just whole plant hang and let it do its thing?
Defense.
Okay. You said you're more on the organic side now, so we know that answer. Seeds or clones sounds like seeds.
Seeds.
Seeds only these days. And melt or rosin.
Melt.
So maybe touch on that just a little bit. As someone who smokes a fair amount of bubble hash, is is melt pretty available to someone like you these days, or is melt hard to come by still? Like true 6-star quality, the melt that gets the name melt.
I mean, I make hash. You know what I'm saying? I got
Yeah.
hash in the freezer right now, so I'm thinking about the fact that I need to make hash like tomorrow. No, I have access to melt here in New York. I have to say I have less access to melt than I would in California. By the time I came back here to New York in 22, the rosin craze had hit New York pretty hard, and right now finding melt in New York is a little bit hard. You have to know people. Dominican Hashery is a top hash maker, but he's hard to find,
Okay.
and it's not like you can just go to a dispensary and get it because right now, if you wanted to be on the legal side, there are only about like five, maybe six at this point, hash companies in the legal market.
Oh wow.
So you can be trapping, but people aren't really trapping melt like that. It's much more rosin, partially because it's popular and partially because people don't know better. But get
Shelf
in a chilling
stability.
session with me and I will blow your lungs out. Okay, what else?
So on that note, are you always pulling bags? Do you pull full spec or do you pull a 90 bag, or what's your stack?
I am pretty standard for me is a 4 bag stack. I am a believer in 73 to 159. So I have 220, 160, 73, 45.
Okay.
Um, Frenchy was a 45 to 159. I'm 73 to 159 because I mean a couple things. I always used to tell Frenchy, you can rest on your name, and of course Frenchy also got access to flour that even the 45 is super melty, but you can rest on your name and and make great melts, but I need to be able to make 6-star consistently. And this is early in the game, like
Right.
early in the game. And I
You're
found
like,
that
I'm not Frenchy.
73, huh?
You're like, I'm not Frenchy. I have
Yeah,
to.
exactly. That's the truth of the matter. It was like, I'm not Frenchy. This is the beginning. I'm not Frenchy. I'm coming on here as like a super fresh face newbie. I wasn't part of any kind of California dynasty. People already are looking, especially at that time, at Frenchie's hash kind of like, because like make no mistake, there are a lot of people who now are into hash who are understanding that color doesn't determine quality and all of that. But back when I started with Frenchie 2014, 2015, we were fighting for our lives on the internet, fighting for our lives in terms of yes, Frenchy got all kinds of props for being Frenchy and him being such a pioneer and a shaper of hash culture in the West. But at the same time, you're dealing with BHO dudes who thought they knew something, talking about poop soup when they see the hash being darker, and you got people who are doing solventless who don't know any better. I mean, just now, Weed Maps just posted some super clear rosin, and they're like, "Have you seen anything so clear?" And I just like right before this interview left the message like, "What exactly are you trying to convey?" Because if we continue to allow marketing to push this idea that the lightest, and we've moved past any real hash makers have moved past that, because a you have resin of different colors, you have different ways that it's prepared, and the idea that slightly darker color or any kind of colors like the white thorn rose that won Emerald Cup for a couple years, it was like a purplish darker hash. you
Oh, it's so
you
good.
weren't going to be looking at it and saying, oh my gosh, look how see-through it was. But you have the average consumer not knowing any better, and what ends up happening is that because people still do need to sell what they need to sell, when the consumers are pushing for white hash or white rosin, what you're having is a lot of people pulling things early, or maybe sectoring to just wash particular things just to satisfy the market, thereby lessening the variety of what's available. So let's stop promoting that.
Yeah, no, I'm about it. It's something I've been trying to do is buy more intentionally buying more genetics that are outside of the same overlapping ancestral gene pools for
Hmm.
that reason. And on that note, what would be a few breeders or genetics that you would recommend to other growers, either just that you enjoy or particularly as good places to start for hash?
Mm, I I like it's funny, I like a lot of Spanish stuff. I like you put me in a position.
You don't have
I'm
to
gonna be
pick
really
one. You can
honest.
name a few.
You're putting me in a position. I think that because then you don't name certain people, then it's just like, oh, you didn't name them. I think it's very key to I think it's key for people to do research about what they like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the easy ways to do some sort of research is to see things that have won and maybe stay within families. For example, if someone likes my type of terpene profile, which is body odor, skunk, baby
It's
vomit,
that
baby
raunchy.
poo, right? I mean, rotten. I'm loving that. I'm saying that although papaya has been done to death, go with some papaya crosses. Papaya crosses drop a lot of resin often, and they win cups, and they're liked by a lot of people if that's something that you like, you know. So whereas I don't want to say people's names,
But shop by lineage.
I yes, I do believe in shopping my lineage. I do believe in that. I do believe in that, because you'll find a lot, you know, cousins have a tendency to work the same way and affect us the same way with slightly different, slight variations. So I believe in shopping by lineage. And I happen to like things that are kind of citrus heavy, although that is me personally. And the citrus I like is not even really in this country. I like this orange juice out of the UK. Um, I like several different kind of papaya type crosses. I like white thorn rose crosses. I mean, I- you might have to take out that question. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm just I'm just cognizant that like people are going to be offended.
Yeah, no, you're good. And I guess you sort of you've mentioned a few different cuts here and there, but is there a particular hash that you've tried recently that stuck with you, or a particular, um, I don't know if when you were in Thailand you had a particularly incredible or unique experience. I know, speaking personally, I've heard nothing but good things about the white thorn rose. So when I went to California and there was white thorn rose available from direct from John and the team, I jumped at the opportunity. But I didn't know if
And
you
you
had
liked it.
any unique profiles that you've come across.
I'm like just getting up right now to see if I can find my judge's paper from Phuket. That would be so interesting if I could find that. Um, Unique profiles that I like the a lot of the grape. I like a lot of the grape work. Oh, you know who I really like, and it's not that recent. Gross Space Killer has a he has a grape. What is it called? I feel so bad. Oh, see, you have me naming people. You
What?
had me naming because really the truth of the matter is that outside of going to Thailand just now, I I really smoke a lot of my own hash.
Okay.
Unless I'm out there judging something, and I have smoked so much, it's just so hard to remember. That's why I'm looking like if I could find my
I was gonna say you
uh,
can also out of your own out of the stable that you've grown and watched.
oh out of my see well then there's that. Okay, well if that's the case. I like ooh I did like that OJ. I did like that OJ from what is going? Oh, okay, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
The last thing I grew, honey, the last thing I grew here was let's go through it. Oh, Vlad. Okay, so I grew this Vlad from Sprouting Leo's farm, and why I like this Vlad, I'm sorry, it's now coming to me. Sometimes you just put things to the side. What I liked about this Vlad is that I grew it for four different runs. I grew a purple version and I grew a green version, and a phenotype. And the green one, the purple worked well being topped, but the green one preferred to be like a sea of green, and it made a cola that is so big. I can send you a picture. It's like one of my highest rated pictures on Instagram. It makes my forearm, and I work out. It's like twice the size of my arms,
Oh wow.
of my forearm. Oh my gosh, that was nice. That Vlad is nice. Trichome, Trichome Genetics from out of Spain. They make a rose soul that I really like. They like make a tropical orange soul that I really like.
Okay.
I like uh, I had a really good, what do you call it? Georgia, not Georgia pie. Yes, I had a Georgia, no, Peyton's pie, which is Georgia pie crossed with Gary Payton. I
Okay.
like that. That dumps pretty nicely. Um, had a couple of other things, honey. I really, I'm sorry.
No, no, that's great. I love it because I mean, we all have different flavor profiles, right? Like my wife, not criticized, but she pointed out that everything I grow is papaya or some
See,
sort
I
of
mean,
papaya,
I didn't
and
want to say papaya also since I've been saying that, but like
yeah. But
a
and
lot
I'm
of
like, no, it's
papaya.
not. There's only one papaya in there, and then I start looking at the lineage, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. There's probably more papaya than cookies in here. Um, so yeah, I completely understand the struggle there. What's keeping you excited about cannabis these days? In the spirit of some people, the down market, and the green rush maybe fading a little bit as a home grower, as a hash maker. What keeps you excited about this plant?
I mean, besides her being so fantastic and she can just be, I really the idea that more and more people are growing at home. I'm gonna be very honest. That's it. The self sufficiency of growing at home, the joy of growing at home, the heartbreak of growing at home. We learn so much by taking that journey and seeing more and more people and like podcasts like this. Like when you wrote, okay, this is about hobby home growers. That's a specific sect that I like that that's growing as big as it is. I really like that. I like that people are doing away with this idea of having the flashiest mylar bag and look at my own creation in this myron jar, keeping it dark to keep my weed safe. I like that.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited. I have to tell you, I'm very excited about that. And I'm also very excited because I am doing the whole international thing. I am excited every single time a new country comes online. Grenada just came online last week. And that is a mental, that's a, just a tick of let's get to Grenada because, like I said, I'm very interested in these stories that aren't told. So the indigenous ways of using medicine and particularly cannabis medicine really revs me up. It really just makes me feel like this is people breaking out of the matrix of what medicine is and going back to what medicine has always been.
Yeah. No, I love that so much because it's one of the things that I think about in this pursuit of supporting the hobby and the homemaker is this market, this segment of us, of these people that enjoy this is only going to get bigger. Like, it's as more
Hmm.
markets come online, as it's not going to be confined to just industry folk who are growing. It's
Hmm.
dentists and doctors and lawyers and accountants and artists and whoever finds their way to having a basement or a spare bedroom with plants.
Yes, yes. I mean, like there, when we think about the fact that there must be hundreds of garden societies right here in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I was a member of like four orchid societies, so just think about that. Think about the information exchange. Think about the person. Like I when I moved to California, I met so many people had such a different view on cannabis just because they had grown up with cannabis. They were after 96. So Prop 215 came into play in 1996, and they had only known cannabis. So when you meet some of these young folk and older folk, because you can always teach any age of dog a new trick, right? And they're so energized about the benefits and the potential of cannabis, and you realize that no matter how much stigma has been attached to this plant, and no matter how much downplaying of the beauty of this plant, she and he, because we need our boys, they still survive and they still exist and they still thrive. So I'm happy about it. I'm very happy about that.
No, I love it. And for those listening and for those considering trying this out yourself, do you have any advice for those people?
For sure. I think that you should start small. I'm not necessarily most people that says start with autos. That's a sentiment a lot of people have, but autos can be very sensitive, so you can become discouraged. Sometimes you touch an auto wrong and it starts flowering immediately. So I don't necessarily believe in starting with autos, but if you're gonna start with photos, start with something easy. Yes, people find it cool to just diss Blue Dream. You're not gonna really find a plant that's easier to grow, and it's going to give you a lot.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying? If you're going to be like me and grow you know, crappy weed in the bit, just grow a lot of crappy weed and grind it up and tell yourself you're getting high.
Love, that's great.
Yeah.
And then for those that have enjoyed your conversations and your take on this space and have been intrigued by what you're working on with the International Women's Conference or just with Hash in general and your pursuits, where can they find you? Where do you want people to go next?
They can find me online at thedankduchess.com, TheDankDuchess.com, and on all socials as the Dank Duchess.
Excellent. Well,
Mm.
thank you so much for your time, Duchess. It's been a pleasure. I uh, I love conversations like this, especially with people who are such adamant supporters of home grow.
Oh, I appreciate the conversation as well. It has been quite nice, and I have to say, it's been a couple of months since I've done a podcast, and you're giving me motivation, sir. Just in this conversation, as I think about the potential, like I said, of all these people growing their own. Oh man, we're gonna overgrow this world in no
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I will get you a draft here,
time.
probably in the next week or so. I
Okay.
have three that I've stacked that I'm going to do all at once. So Jessica Peros, I don't know if you know who that is. She knew who you were. Um,
Jessica
she
Petal.
she's the Green Room HQ. She's an Australian cannabis person. She was just in Thailand. I just talked to her on Monday, and she also just came back from Thailand. She was like, "I know
Oh, really?
Duchess." I was like, "Okay, cool." But
Jessica Petal.
trying to stack the list here this season and get some more voices in the mix. So I really appreciate
Mm-hmm.
you taking the time.
For sure. Thank you very much for inviting me on and, invite me again.
Yeah, definitely. That's it for now. New episodes drop weekly to inspire your hobby. Hit subscribe, leave a review, share with a friend. And as always, I'm your host, Ben Owens, and we'll see you next time.